Caleb Reed did not answer the unknown number. He did not throw the phone. He did not show Evelyn Hart the kind of fear the message was trying to purchase from him. He simply placed the phone flat on the conference table, screen up, so everyone in the room could see the words without him having to carry them alone. If you want to know who bought your grief, come to Red Willow. For a few seconds, the only sound in Silvergate's conference room was the soft hum of the lights and the distant shuffle of a night groom moving through the main barn. Evelyn stood across from him with the folder from her father's private archive still open, her face pale in a way that expensive makeup could not hide. Denise stood near the door, one hand on her radio. Officer Grant read the message once, then again, and Caleb watched her choose professionalism over alarm. Outside, Midnight Atlas was already on the road to independent veterinary care under police escort. At home, Lily was safe with Mrs. Alvarez, soup, locks, and an undefeated rolling pin. On paper, the room was safer than it had been 2 hours earlier. Caleb knew better. A room was not safe just because the danger had moved outside it. "We are not going to Red Willow tonight," he said. Evelyn's head lifted. The message says what it wants my fear to hear, not what the evidence needs." Officer Grant nodded once. "Good." Evelyn looked between them. "If we wait, they may move whatever they want us to find." Caleb looked at her. "If we rush, we become whatever they want to film." The word stopped her because by now she had seen enough of that trap to recognize its shape. Caleb took the marker and turned back to the whiteboard, adding a new column beside horse safe, child threat, Hartwell files, Red Willow timing. He wrote, "Do not enter their room blind." Then he capped the marker. "First, we preserve the message. Second, we notify Red Willow County that their old records are part of an active intimidation pattern. Third, Officer Grant requests assistance through official channels, not through Silvergate, not through Hart Council, not through anyone with family money in the middle. Fourth, Mrs. Alvarez takes Lily to the safe location Officer Grant chooses, not one I choose emotionally. Fifth, we sleep enough not to make stupid decisions." Evelyn stared at him. "You think you can sleep after this?" "No." "Then why say it?" "Because tired people confuse movement with control." Denise lowered her tablet slightly. "I can arrange secure transport for Lily." Caleb turned to her. "Police arrange it. You can offer resources after they ask." Denise accepted that without offense. Evelyn folded her arms, not in dismissal now, but to keep herself from reaching for a control she had not earned. "What do I do?" Caleb looked at her. "You preserve your father's archive. I already ordered that. You preserve the part you do not want to read." Her face tightened. "Meaning?" He tapped the folder. "If this came from your father's legacy, risk box, there are more boxes. Maybe about Hartwell, Harrison, Red Willow, me, Atlas, Victor, and other people who never knew they were standing in your family's room." Evelyn went quiet. That landed exactly where it needed to. "And if I find something about you," she asked, "you do not call me first." "Why?" "Because if I hear it from you before it is documented, they can say you shaped my response. Evidence before emotion." "You really live like this?" Caleb thought of Lily asleep on Mrs. Alvarez's couch, of Hannah's photo on the kitchen table, of Atlas lowering his head in the arena, of Red Willow rain and a boy's hand slipping from a bridge rail. "No," he said, "I survive like this." By 2:00 a.m., the room had become a map of careful choices. Officer Grant had contacted Red Willow County through her supervisor, requesting preservation of dispatch audio, command logs, tactical orders, media records, settlement files, and any private risk consultant communications linked to the Ellison Bridge incident. Mrs. Alvarez and Lily were moved quietly to the home of a retired deputy named Ruth Calder, a woman Mrs. Alvarez trusted because, as she explained, Ruth once broke a man's nose for kicking a dog and then baked him banana bread when he apologized correctly. Caleb did not ask for more details. He spoke to Lily only once before she slept. She asked if Atlas was safe. He said yes. She asked if he was going to the place from the bad video. He said not yet. She asked if bad videos could lie. He said yes, but only if people forgot to ask what came before and after. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Then ask before and after." Caleb held the phone so tightly his knuckles ached. "I will. And Dad?" "Yeah, Bug, if the room is scary, take Sergeant Pickles in your head. That is advanced, tactical advice. He has rank." "I know." After the call ended, Caleb sat in his old pickup outside Silvergate because he refused Evelyn's offer of a guest suite and because he needed the smell of dust, hay, and cracked vinyl more than he needed luxury pretending to be comfort. He did not sleep so much as lower his head for 20-minute fragments while rain tapped the windshield. At dawn, Jamie brought him coffee without speaking. The boy's eyes were swollen from crying and not sleeping. Caleb accepted the cup. "Atlas," Jamie said. "Dr. Patel says he ate a little, still anxious, no major injury." "Good." Jamie stood beside the truck, shifting from foot to foot. "Mr. Reed?" "Caleb." "Caleb, if you go to Red Willow, are you going to be okay?" Caleb looked at the rising light over the paddocks. "Probably not." Jamie swallowed. Caleb glanced at him. "That does not mean I should not go. I thought brave people were okay." Caleb almost smiled. "That is something cowards invented to make brave people easier to use." Jamie looked down. "I'm scared too." "Good, good. Fear tells you the room matters. Panic tells you fear is in charge. Keep the first. Don't hire the second." Jamie nodded as if storing every sentence somewhere he might need later. At 7:15, Evelyn walked across the gravel toward them in a dark coat. No entourage, no cameras, no visible armor except posture. She held a sealed evidence bag and a copied file. "I found more," she said. Caleb stepped out of the truck. "Was it documented before you moved it?" "Yes." She did not sound offended by the question anymore. Denise recorded the box, counsel witnessed. Officer Grant received a copy index. "Good." Evelyn handed him nothing. Instead, she placed the file on the hood of the truck where both of them could see it without making it private. "My father's archive included a Hartwell memo from 2 years after Red Willow. It calls the incident a high-value behavioral study in reputational collapse under unresolved guilt." Jamie whispered, "That's sick." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "It gets worse." Caleb looked at the file but did not touch it. "Read it." Evelyn looked at him. "Caleb, read it." She forced herself to continue. "It says you demonstrated unusually high de-escalation success prior to command override, but post-incident media framing created exploitable self-silencing. It recommends keeping you outside formal crisis leadership while retaining potential future use in animal and human containment environments." The words did not shock Caleb in the way they might have a day earlier. Shock required a belief that some lines would not be crossed. That belief had been dying in him all night. "Future use," he said. "Yes." Evelyn's voice lowered. "There is also a payment reference. Hartwell billed my father's family office for Red Willow media monitoring." Caleb looked up slowly. "Why would your father pay to monitor a county bridge incident?" Evelyn's eyes were full of the answer she did not want. "Because Hartwell was already working with him. Officer Grant arrived then, saving neither of them. Red Willow County confirmed records are preserved. They also confirmed something else. The old tactical commander, Paul Mercer, died last year. But the dispatcher from that night is alive. Her name is Ava Brooks. She still lives near Red Willow. She says she has been waiting for your call for 4 years." Caleb felt the world narrow. "She said that?" "Yes." "Why didn't she come forward?" Officer Grant's mouth tightened. "She tried, twice. County legal buried her complaint. Then her son lost a scholarship tied to a Hart family education fund." Evelyn closed her eyes. "God." Caleb looked at her. "Do not use God as punctuation for what people did." She opened her eyes and nodded, accepting the rebuke. The drive to Red Willow began at 8:40 a.m. in 3 vehicles. Officer Grant in front with a county liaison, Caleb in his pickup because again he refused to arrive in Hartwell, and Evelyn behind with Denise and outside counsel because she had finally accepted that proximity was not ownership. The landscape changed as they drove west. The manicured horse country thinned into old farms, closed mills, gas stations, clapboard houses, and the kind of towns that looked forgotten only to people who had never needed them. Caleb had not been back to Red Willow since the inquest. His hands remained steady on the wheel, but every mile made the past louder. He remembered rain on the bridge, Mark Ellison's voice cracking through a phone. The boy, Toby, 12 years old, trying to be braver than his father. Caleb remembered saying, "Mark, look at me, not the lights." He remembered getting him to lower the knife. He remembered the boy's foot shifting back from the ledge. He remembered the commander's voice in his earpiece, "We are losing containment. Move." He remembered saying, "Negative, hold position," and being ignored. He remembered Mark seeing the movement, panic exploding, Toby grabbing his father's sleeve, and the world becoming water and screaming. The memory did not return as images. It returned as temperature, rain cold, metal cold, blood cold. He pulled over once before the county line, not because he needed to be sick, though he nearly was, but because his breathing had changed and a negotiator who ignored his own body became a danger to every room he entered. Officer Grant pulled over ahead. Evelyn's SUV stopped behind at a distance, respecting space she had not always known how to respect. Caleb stood outside the pickup, hands on the hood, breathing in the smell of wet grass and diesel. Officer Grant approached slowly. "You need to stop?" "No, that was not what I asked." He gave a faint, humorless smile. "You're learning. I had a decent teacher yesterday." Caleb looked toward the road. "If I freeze when we get there, you name the room." "Understood. If I start defending myself before the record opens, stop me." "How hard?" "Hard enough." Evelyn stepped closer but stayed several feet away. "Should I leave?" Caleb looked at her. The easy answer would have been yes. Her family money had touched too much of this. Her disbelief had opened too many doors, but she was also evidence now, and if she did not see Red Willow, her father's archive would remain partly abstract to her. "No," he said. "But you do not speak first." She nodded. Red Willow County Records. Annex was a squat brick building beside an old courthouse with peeling columns and a flag snapping in the wind. Ava Brooks waited in the lobby with a cardboard box at her feet and a face like someone who had learned not to expect rescue but had brought proof anyway. She was in her late 50s, with cropped gray hair, tired eyes, and a dispatcher's posture, alert, contained, used to hearing catastrophe before anyone else saw it. When she saw Caleb, her hand went to her chest. "You came back," she said. Caleb stopped 6 feet away. "I did. I'm sorry." He shook his head once. "Do not start there." Her eyes filled. "I heard you say hold." The lobby disappeared for him for half a second. He heard rain again. "Ava, I heard you say it 3 times before Mercer gave the move order. I heard you say the boy was shifting safe. I heard you say do not break the room." Caleb had to look down. Evelyn stood very still behind him. Officer Grant watched everyone. Ava touched the cardboard box with her foot. "I copied the dispatch channel before they locked me out. I kept it because I thought one day you might need to know you were not crazy." Caleb's throat worked, but no sound came. Ava looked past him at Evelyn. "Are you the Hart woman?" Evelyn did not correct the bluntness. "Yes." Ava's face hardened. "Your father's consultant was there." Evelyn went pale. "What consultant?" "Jonah Vale, Hartwell Risk. He stood beside Mercer in the command van and kept saying public containment was collapsing. Media was arriving. Family optics unstable. He said if the father jumped during live coverage, the county would own the story forever." Caleb closed his eyes. Officer Grant said softly, "And Mercer moved because of Vale." Ava nodded. "Mercer was scared of looking weak. Vale gave him language that made fear sound like leadership." Caleb opened his eyes. "Do you have that on audio?" Ava bent, opened the box, and lifted a sealed drive in a plastic case. Yes, the records review room had 1 table, 2 old computers, 3 cameras set up by Officer Grant, and a window looking toward the courthouse parking lot. Caleb insisted on procedure before playback. Identify the file. Identify who preserved it. Identify chain gaps. Identify who was present. Ava stated her name. Officer Grant stated the purpose. Evelyn stated that Hartwell's connection to her father's office was under independent investigation and that she would not control the record. Caleb stated only, "I am present as the named negotiator in the Red Willow incident and as the target of current intimidation." Then Ava played the audio. 4 years collapsed into sound. Rain against command vehicle metal. Radio static. Mark Ellison sobbing. Toby crying. Dad, please. Caleb's younger voice came through. Lower, steadier, full of a hope he now understood as dangerous, only because someone else had broken it. Mark, you are doing the hard part. Keep looking at me. Toby is sitting down. That is good. Nobody is moving on you. I need you to breathe before the next sentence. Caleb's hands curled under the table. Evelyn looked down, her face stricken. The audio continued. Commander Mercer, we are losing containment. Caleb, negative, hold. Subject compliance improving. Child moving away from edge. Do not advance. Jonah Vale's voice entered, smooth, almost bored. Commander, if this extends to live broadcast, your agency becomes the frame. Action before optics harden. Mercer, Team 2, prepare. Caleb, hold position. Do not break the room. Repeat, do not break the room. Vale, he is over, attached. He cannot see the external risk. Caleb flinched. The room watched him not because they doubted him now, but because hearing your own life misnamed in real time was a kind of violence. The audio moved faster. Footsteps, a shouted command, Mark screaming, Toby shouting, Caleb's voice, suddenly raw. Stop. Stop moving. Mark, look at me. Look at me. Then chaos. Rain. Metal. Someone screaming from below. Ava stopped the file before the worst part. No one moved. Caleb stared at the table. For 4 years, shame had lived in him as a sealed stall, pacing, striking whenever memory came too close. Now the door had opened. But what came out was not innocence. Innocence would have been too simple. Toby was still dead. Mark was still dead. Hannah had still watched Caleb disappear into himself afterward. Lily had still grown up with a father who measured exits in grocery stores. The audio did not erase failure. It named the hands that pushed. Evelyn whispered, Caleb. He lifted one hand, not ready. Ava wiped her eyes angrily. I'm sorry. I should have fought harder. Caleb looked at her then. They took your son's scholarship. Ava blinked. How did you? Officer Grant told me. That doesn't excuse me. No, Caleb said, but it explains the pressure. Explanation matters. Evelyn looked as if the words cut her because they had applied to her too, and Caleb let them. Mercy was not the same as rescue. Ava opened another folder. There's more. Officer Grant leaned forward. What kind of more? After the inquest, Hartwell requested behavioral summaries on everyone involved. Mercer, me, the tactical team, Mark's widow, the boy's school counselor, and you. She looked at Caleb. They studied how each person carried guilt. Evelyn's voice sharpened. For what purpose? Ava slid a printed memo across the table. Training product. Crisis. Influence modeling. They called it the Red Willow Framework. Caleb did not touch the paper. Officer Grant photographed it first. Then Evelyn read aloud because Caleb asked her to. Her voice shook by the second paragraph. The Red Willow incident demonstrates that unresolved guilt can be used to predict compliance, silence, overcorrection, and future crisis entry behavior. Negotiator Reed exhibits high protective drive, high self-blame retention, high vulnerability to child threat language, and probable withdrawal from formal authority structures if reputational shame is reinforced. Evelyn stopped. Her eyes were wet now, but she did not ask for sympathy. Good. Caleb said, keep reading. She forced herself to continue. Recommended future applications. Conflict environments involving animals, minors, distressed heirs, or legacy-sensitive assets. Read-type subjects may be positioned as low-authority stabilizers while remaining externally discreditable if needed. Ava looked horrified. They built a business out of it. Caleb looked at the memo. No, they built a leash. The door opened behind them. A woman stood in the hallway, thin, brown-haired, her face older than her body, holding a folded newspaper clipping in one hand. Caleb recognized her before anyone said her name, and every practiced wall inside him shook. Sarah Ellison. Toby's mother, Mark's widow. The woman whose husband and son had gone over Red Willow Bridge while Caleb begged a team not to move. Officer Grant stood immediately. Ma'am, this is a closed evidence review. Sarah did not look at her. She looked only at Caleb. I saw the article. Caleb stood slowly. Mrs. Ellison. Her mouth twisted. Don't call me that like we're at a funeral again. He nodded once. Sarah, Evelyn shifted, but Caleb held up one hand without looking back. Do not enter. This was not her room. Sarah stepped inside. For 4 years I thought I hated you. Caleb did not defend himself. I know. Do you? No, not fully. That stopped her for half a second. She looked at the table, the equipment, Ava, Evelyn, Officer Grant. They told me you rushed him. Caleb's chest hurt. I didn't. They told me you promised Toby he would be safe. I told him to sit down and keep his eyes on me. Sarah's hand shook around the clipping. They told me the team moved because you lost control. Ava stood. Sarah, that was false. Sarah turned toward her. You knew? Ava flinched. I tried to tell county legal. You knew? The room broke open in a different way then, not with evidence, but with a mother's betrayal. Ava began crying. Yes. Sarah moved toward her, grief becoming fury, and Officer Grant stepped forward, but Caleb spoke first, quiet and firm. Sarah. She turned on him. Do not use that voice on me. He accepted that. Okay. You don't get to calm me. Correct. You don't get to make this clean. Correct. She was breathing hard now, tears spilling without permission. My son died while men argued about optics. Caleb's voice almost failed, but he held it. Yes. She looked at Evelyn. And your family paid them? Evelyn did not hide. My father's office paid Hartwell. I do not yet know every payment, but enough to say yes, our money touched the system that buried the truth. Sarah stared at her with a hatred so pure, the room seemed to step back. Your money touched my dead child. Evelyn took it. Yes. Say his name. Evelyn swallowed. Toby Ellison. Sarah's knees nearly gave out. Caleb moved instinctively, then stopped because she had not asked for his hands. Officer Grant helped her to a chair. For a long time, Sarah cried with no dignity, and everyone in the room had the decency not to rescue her from the sound of it. When she could speak again, she looked at Caleb. Did Toby suffer? The question was a blade every parent feared and every witness dreaded. Caleb pulled the chair across from her, but did not sit until she gave the smallest nod. He was scared, he said. He called for you. He tried to hold his father because he loved him. After the fall, I reached him before the medics did. He was cold and confused, but he heard me. I told him you were coming. I told him he was not alone. Sarah covered her mouth. Was that true? Caleb's eyes filled. Yes, I stayed with him until they took him. Sarah sobbed once, sharp and animal. They never told me that. No. Why? Caleb looked at the Red Willow Framework memo. Because comfort that does not come through them is hard to control. Sarah looked at him for a long moment. I still hate you sometimes. Caleb nodded. That belongs to you. But not all of it belongs on you. Caleb could not answer. Sarah reached into her coat and pulled out a small toy, a blue plastic horse, scuffed and faded. Toby had this in his pocket. They gave it to me after. He loved horses. Caleb stared at it. The room seemed to tilt again, but this time toward a pattern too cruel to be coincidence. Evelyn saw his face. What? Caleb looked at Sarah. Did anyone from Hartwell contact you after the inquest? Sarah frowned. A grief consultant. Said she worked with a family foundation. Offered support if I signed media privacy agreements. Evelyn whispered. Hartwell. Sarah nodded slowly. She asked strange questions. What questions? Caleb asked. Whether Toby had animals. Whether Mark responded better to direct orders or emotional language. Whether you had spoken about horses during the negotiation. Caleb's blood chilled. Ava searched through her box with shaking hands. There was a transcript annotation. She pulled another page. Here. Officer Grant photographed it. Caleb read the line only after she nodded. Subject child responds positively when read references horse breathing exercise. Potential cross-domain calming language noted. Evelyn sank back in her chair. They connected Red Willow to equine crisis work. Caleb looked through the window toward the distant line of trees where the bridge waited somewhere beyond town. They did not place me at Silvergate because I trained horses. He looked at Evelyn. They placed me there because I had once used horse language to calm a dying child, and they turned that into a model. No one spoke. There were kinds of evil that announced themselves with weapons, and there were kinds that sat quietly in memos, turning a boy's last comfort into future strategy. Sarah's voice was barely audible. They used Toby. Caleb looked at the toy horse in her hand. Yes. Evelyn stood abruptly, walked to the corner of the room, and pressed both hands against the wall as if the building might move if she did not hold it. For the first time, she looked less like an heir to power, and more like someone whose inheritance had become a crime scene. I want every Hartwell record, she said, voice shaking with fury. Every foundation invoice, every training product, every legacy risk memo. Officer Grant said, "We will need warrants." "Then get them," Caleb said. "Do not command the law like staff." Evelyn turned, anger flashing, then caught herself. "You're right." She faced Officer Grant. "Tell me what legal cooperation is useful and what is interference." Officer Grant gave Caleb a look that said, "She is learning," and Caleb almost smiled. But Sarah was still holding Toby's horse, and smiling had no place there yet. By late afternoon, Red Willow had become more than a place Caleb had failed. It had become the origin point of a method. Grief capture, shame reinforcement, cross-domain influence, modeling, legacy, risk containment. Hartwell did not merely bury the truth after the bridge, it harvested the people harmed by it. Ava gave a full recorded statement. Sarah agreed to release Hartwell's grief consultant documents. Officer Grant secured a warrant request tied to current child intimidation, horse theft, financial coercion, and historical evidence suppression. Evelyn surrendered the Hart archive folder to independent custody. Caleb gave his statement last. He did not dramatize. He did not absolve himself. He said what he had said, what Mercer had ordered, what Vale had advised, what he had heard when Toby fell, what he had buried when Hannah got sick, what resurfaced when Lily's sticker appeared in Atlas's stall. When he finished, the room was silent. Officer Grant turned off the recorder. "You okay?" Caleb gave the only honest answer. "No." Sarah stood near the door with the blue horse in her palm. "Caleb," he turned. She approached and placed the toy horse on the table between them. "I am not giving this to you." He nodded. "I understand. I am placing it in evidence." His throat tightened. "Why?" Her eyes filled again, but her voice held. "Because my son was not a case study. He was a boy who liked horses." Caleb bowed his head once, not in apology exactly, but in witness. Yes, as they left the record's annex, the sky over Red Willow had turned the color of old steel. Evelyn walked beside Caleb but did not speak until they reached his pickup. "I am sorry," she said. This time he did not stop her, maybe because the day had earned it, maybe because she did not say it to end the discomfort. She said it like the beginning of debt. Caleb leaned against the truck, exhausted beyond posture. "Sorry is a receipt, not repayment." "Then tell me the repayment." He looked toward the road out of town. "You open the whole Hartwell system. Even if it destroys my father's name." "Especially then." She nodded. "And you?" "I go home to my daughter." "And after?" He looked at her. "After, I decide whether I can stand in another room." His phone rang before she could answer. "Mrs. Alvarez." Caleb answered instantly. "Lily?" "Safe," Mrs. Alvarez said. "Still safe," but the clinic called again. Caleb closed his eyes. "What now?" "They said Lily's respiratory study sponsor changed. They need a parent's signature before treatment continues." His stomach tightened. "Sponsor changed to who?" Mrs. Alvarez was silent for half a beat too long. "Hartwell Pediatric Resilience." Caleb looked across the parking lot at Evelyn. She saw his face and went still. Mrs. Alvarez continued, voice trembling with rage. "Caleb, they are not just in the barn, they are in the clinic." Caleb lowered the phone slowly. The Red Willow evidence box sat in Officer Grant's car. Toby's blue horse was inside it. Atlas was alive. Harrison was in custody. Victor was exposed. Evelyn was awake. But Lily's treatment, the one thing Caleb had been trying to protect quietly beneath every room, every horse, every memory, had been sitting in Hartwell's hands the entire time. Evelyn whispered, "What happened?" Caleb looked toward the dark road home, and when he spoke, his voice was calm enough to frighten everyone who heard it. "They built the chute around my daughter, too." Caleb Reed heard Mrs. Alvarez say Hartwell pediatric resilience and felt the world shrink to the size of his daughter's lungs. For one dangerous second, Red Willow disappeared, Silvergate disappeared, Midnight Atlas disappeared, Evelyn Hart disappeared, and all he could see was Lily sitting on the edge of an exam table swinging her small legs, trusting adults in white coats because her father had taught her that rooms became safer when you named them. He had been wrong. Or not wrong. Exactly, but incomplete. Some rooms wore kindness, like paint. Some rooms smiled at frightened parents while building signatures into cages. Caleb stood in the Red Willow Records Annex parking lot with the phone in his hand, Evelyn watching him from 3 feet away. Officer Grant beside the evidence vehicle, Sarah Ellison holding herself upright near the courthouse steps, and Ava Brooks standing in the doorway with 4 years of truth finally breathing behind her. Nobody spoke because Caleb's face had become too calm. Evelyn had learned enough by then to fear that kind of calm. "Mrs. Alvarez," Caleb said, his voice low and even, "do not sign anything. Do not verbally agree to anything. Do not cancel the appointment. Do not argue. Ask for the full sponsor, change notice, the consent packet, and the name of the person requesting signature. Put the phone on speaker if they call again. If they ask why, say the parent is reviewing medical language." "Mrs. Alvarez's breathing crackled through the phone. "They said treatment could be delayed. That is pressure, not information. They said the window is today. That is a deadline, not a medical fact until a doctor states the clinical reason. They said parents who hesitate risk disqualification." Caleb closed his eyes. "That is coercion, wearing a lab coat." Evelyn flinched because she heard the sentence land near her family's name. Caleb opened his eyes. "Where is Lily now?" "Kitchen table. Ruth is with us. Police car outside. Lily is drawing Sergeant Pickles with a badge." "Good. Tell her I'm handling the paperwork monster." She asked if paperwork monsters have hooves. Despite everything, Caleb almost smiled. "Tell her the worst ones wear shoes." Mrs. Alvarez made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "Come home, Caleb." He looked toward the road leading out of Red Willow. "I am." He ended the call and finally turned to Evelyn. She looked as though she wanted to say "I'm sorry" again, but this time she knew better than to put the weight of her remorse into the moment when his daughter's treatment sat inside her family's system. "What do you need?" she asked instead. Caleb nodded once because that was the better question. "A wall between Lily's care and Hartwell money. Not tomorrow. Now." Evelyn took out her phone. "I can fund." "No." Her hand stopped. "Caleb, if treatment is being threatened, let me pay. Not directly. This is not about optics now. It is always about optics when rich people move money around poor children." Her jaw tightened. "I am trying to help, I know." "Then why refuse?" Caleb looked at Sarah, still holding Toby's absence in both hands, then back at Evelyn. "Because if you pay privately, Hartwell says I was bought. If you pressure the clinic, they say you interfered. If I refuse treatment, they say I endangered my child. If I sign, they get Lily's data and my compliance. The trap is not the bill. The trap is every door pretending to be the only door." Officer Grant stepped closer. "What is the clean door?" Caleb answered immediately. "Emergency patient advocate. Independent hospital review. Court notified preservation of Lily's medical access. Treatment continues under existing physician recommendation, but sponsor language frozen pending review. No broad records release. No study enrollment without independent counsel." Officer Grant nodded. "I can ask the department to contact the clinic and document the intimidation concern." Evelyn said, "I can have my counsel notify Hartwell that any change connected to Lily Reed is under investigation." Caleb looked at her. "Only after Officer Grant contacts the clinic. Law first, wealth second." "Agreed." Sarah Ellison approached slowly. "They did this to families after Red Willow too." Caleb looked at her. "Medical?" Sarah shook her head. Counseling funds, school support, memorial scholarships, everything came with soft language, privacy, cooperation, healing, no media escalation, no blame language around institutional response. Evelyn's face went pale. Hartwell pediatric resilience may not be pediatric only. Ava stepped out of the doorway, holding another folder. Hartwell used the word resilience for every program that taught victims to survive quietly. Caleb looked at the folder, then toward the road. Then Lily's treatment is not separate from the case. It is the next room. The drive back from Red Willow felt longer than the drive there, though Caleb knew the roads had not changed. Officer Grant arranged a protective contact with Lily's clinic while driving ahead. Evelyn's counsel sent a preservation notice only after Officer Grant confirmed the clinic administrator had received police documentation of potential intimidation. Denise checked Hartwell pediatric resilience filings from the back seat of Evelyn's SUV and called every 10 minutes with pieces that made the picture uglier. A charitable medical sponsor connected to Hartwell Risk Advisory, funded through a Hart Family Legacy Trust, providing respiratory treatment grants, pediatric counseling vouchers, and caregiver stability research in rural and working-class families under financial stress. Caregiver stability. Caleb heard the phrase and tasted metal. People who wrote that kind of language never saw a father sleeping in a chair beside a coughing child. They saw a variable. They arrived at Lily's clinic just after dusk. Caleb parked his pickup beside Officer Grant's vehicle, not near Evelyn's SUV. He needed every camera to show separation, every step to show order, every movement to refuse the story Hartwell had already written. The clinic's glass front reflected the parking lot lights and made the pediatric murals inside look ghostly. Whales, stars, smiling clouds, a painted pony in a meadow. Caleb hated the pony most. Mrs. Alvarez came out first, purple cardigan under her coat, rolling pin absent but spirit intact. She hugged him hard enough to bruise and whispered, "She is fine," annoyed because Ruth would not let her interrogate the police dog. "Good. You are not fine. Also true. I made soup." "Of course you did." Lily appeared behind the glass a moment later, holding Sergeant Pickles and a sheet of paper. When she saw Caleb, she ran through the door before Ruth Calder could stop her. Caleb crouched and caught her, closing his eyes as her small arms locked around his neck. She smelled like crayons, cocoa, and the strawberry hand sanitizer the clinic used. Alive. Warm. His. "Dad," she whispered. The paperwork monster came back. He held her tighter. "I heard. Did you bring the quiet voice?" "Yes." She leaned back and studied him. "Your eyebrows are not lying politely. They are telling secrets badly." Mrs. Alvarez muttered. "Child sees through concrete." Caleb touched Lily's curls. "I need you to stay with Mrs. Alvarez and Ruth while I talk to the clinic." Lily glanced past him at Evelyn. She had seen Evelyn only from a distance once, at Silvergate, a rich woman in a cream coat who owned the scary horse. Now Evelyn stood near the edge of the parking lot, careful not to approach without invitation, and Lily's eyes narrowed with the blunt judgment of children. "Is she the fancy horse lady?" Caleb said. "Yes." Lily looked at Evelyn again. "Did she listen to Atlas?" Caleb looked at Evelyn, who heard the question and seemed to understand it mattered more than board votes. Evelyn stepped closer, slowly, stopping several feet away. "Not soon enough," she said. Lily considered that. "But now?" Evelyn's voice softened. "I'm trying." Lily nodded, as if that was acceptable but not impressive. "Trying is better if you don't wait until the horse is super mad." Mrs. Alvarez crossed herself. From the mouth of tiny judges. Caleb kissed Lily's forehead. "Go inside. Don't sign monster paper." "I won't." The clinic administrator met them in a small conference room that smelled of disinfectant and coffee. Her name was Marlene Pike, a careful woman with a careful smile, joined by Dr. Evans, Lily's pulmonologist, whose discomfort appeared genuine and whose eyes kept moving toward the sponsor packet as if it had arrived in his office like a snake. Caleb insisted on naming the room before anyone discussed forms. "Pediatric Clinic Conference Room," he said, placing his phone on the table with recording visible after receiving consent from Officer Grant and the clinic's counsel by phone. Time 6:43 p.m. Present, Caleb Reed, parent of Lily Reed. Dr. Evans, treating physician. Marlene Pike, clinic administrator. Officer Grant documenting a potential intimidation pattern. Evelyn Hart present as witness to Hartwell, related records but not as medical decision-maker. Denise outside the room, Mrs. Alvarez and Lily not present. Purpose: determine whether Lily Reed's treatment access changed, why sponsor consent language changed, and how to continue medically recommended care without coerced data release. Marlene Pike swallowed. Mr. Reed, we are not trying to coerce anyone. Caleb nodded. Good. Then we begin with facts. Dr. Evans leaned forward. Clinically, Lily remains eligible for the respiratory support protocol. Nothing about her medical need changed. Caleb looked at Marlene. Then who said treatment could be delayed? Marlene's face tightened. The sponsor portal flagged her file for updated consent. Sponsor name? Hartwell Pediatric Resilience. When did the sponsor change? Today. Requested by whom? She looked down. I don't know. Caleb waited. Silence had weight when you did not rush to fill it. Marlene finally added, the portal listed an external compliance contact. Name? Celia March. Evelyn's head turned sharply. Caleb saw it. You know the name. Evelyn's voice was cold. Dr. Celia March was a behavioral program director for Hartwell. My father's archive referenced her in relation to Red Willow follow-up. Dr. Evans looked sick. Behavioral? This is a pediatric respiratory grant. Caleb looked at the packet. Not anymore. Officer Grant asked Marlene to produce the consent packet. Marlene slid it across the table. Caleb did not touch it until Officer Grant photographed the cover. Then he opened to the marked sections. The language was soft, friendly, terrible, caregiver participation, longitudinal family resilience tracking, emotional response modeling, media privacy cooperation, cross-program sponsor review, broad data sharing with affiliated research partners. Caleb felt his heart slow down, not from calm, but from the cold fury that came when a threat became a document. He pointed to the paragraph. Dr. Evans, is this medically required for Lily's treatment? Dr. Evans read it, jaw tightening. No. Is broad caregiver emotional response modeling medically necessary? Absolutely not. Is media privacy cooperation medically necessary? No. Is cross-program sponsor review medically necessary? No. Can Lily receive the medically indicated care without these clauses? Dr. Evans looked at Marlene, then at Caleb. Clinically, yes, Marlene quickly said. Funding may not approve. Caleb turned to her. That is not what I asked him. She flushed. The sponsor may reject coverage. Then we separate treatment from sponsor approval. We cannot guarantee payment without. Marlene, Dr. Evans said, surprising everyone, we are not delaying a child's care because a sponsor inserted research language today. Marlene looked trapped. Doctor, the clinic cannot absorb every. Evelyn spoke for the first time. If cost is the issue, a neutral escrow can be established through Officer Grant's recommended patient advocate and outside counsel, with no data control by me, Hartwell, Silvergate, or any Hart entity. Caleb looked at her. She met his eyes. Law first, she said. We follow their structure. He nodded once. Good. Marlene's phone buzzed on the table. She looked at it and turned pale. Caleb noticed. Officer Grant did too. Do not answer privately, Caleb said. Marlene's hand froze. It's the compliance contact. Officer Grant leaned forward. Put it on speaker. You are not required to, but given the circumstances, it may help document whether this is medical administration or pressure. Marlene hesitated. Caleb softened his tone, because she was not the architect. She was a middle person in a chute. Name what you are afraid of. Her eyes lifted to his. Losing the grant. Good. That is honest. Now decide whether protecting the grant is worth becoming the person who pressures a parent in a child's treatment room. Marlene looked ashamed. Then she answered and put the call on speaker. A woman's voice entered the room, smooth. bright, professional. Marlene, I saw the consent packet is still unsigned. Is the parent present? Caleb pointed to himself. Marlene said, yes. The woman's voice warmed artificially. Mr. Reed, this is Dr. Celia March with Hartwell Pediatric Resilience. First, I want to say how committed we are to Lily's care. We understand stressful moments can make paperwork feel overwhelming. Caleb looked at Evelyn. Evelyn's face had gone hard. Dr. March continued, the updated consent is standard for families receiving enhanced support. Without it, unfortunately, Lily's placement in the treatment window may be affected. Caleb said, Dr. March, state the clinical reason broad caregiver emotional response data is required for respiratory treatment. A brief pause. It is part of our holistic model. That is a philosophy, not a clinical reason. Another pause, shorter this time. Mr. Reed, I sense concern. Parents with trauma histories often experience sponsor language as threatening when it is actually supportive. Evelyn's hand tightened on the table. Officer Grant's eyes sharpened. Caleb's voice stayed even. You referenced trauma histories. What trauma history appears in Lily's sponsor file? Dr. March inhaled softly. I'm speaking generally. Then state that Lily Reed's file contains no caregiver behavioral risk profile. Silence. Marlene looked down. Dr. Evans looked at Caleb, horrified by what the silence implied. Caleb continued, Dr. March, this call is documented. Lily Reed's treatment is medically indicated by Dr. Evans and cannot be conditioned on non-essential research consent without raising serious concerns. If you disagree, state the medical basis. The woman's voice cooled. Mr. Reed, hostility may complicate collaborative care. Caleb leaned closer to the phone. That is a behavior label. Try facts. Evelyn almost smiled, but the moment was too grim for it. Dr. March said, Hartwell reserves the right to determine grant eligibility, and Lily's treating physician reserves the right to continue care under medical necessity while law enforcement and patient advocacy review sponsor interference. Law enforcement? Officer Grant is present. The silence after that was different. The smoothness did not return immediately. I see, Caleb said. Do you? Dr. March's voice dropped half a degree. Mr. Reed, I hope you understand that public conflict around a child's medical care can be damaging for everyone involved. State the threat clearly. Marlene closed her eyes. Evelyn looked at Caleb with something close to awe, not because the phrase was dramatic, but because she had watched it strip masks off too many rooms to doubt it now. Dr. March gave a small laugh. There is no threat. Good. Then send written confirmation that Lily's treatment will not be delayed due to refusal of non-essential research and media clauses. I'm not authorized to. Then connect the person who is. Another pause. Paper rustled on the other end. I will have to call you back. No, Caleb said. You will stay on the line while Dr. Evans states the minimum clinical consent required. Marlene will state what the clinic needs for billing. Officer Grant will state preservation notice. Evelyn Hart will state non-control escrow availability. Then you will either accept medical separation from research language or state refusal on record. Doctor. End of 62. Evans stared at him as if Caleb had just built a bridge out of air. Dr. March said, colder now, You are very comfortable managing rooms, Mr. Reed. Caleb's eyes did not move. Only when someone tries to manage my child. The next 22 minutes became the kind of quiet battle-rich systems hated because no one shouted, no one stormed out, no one gave them an emotional clip to use. Dr. Evans identified the medically required forms. Marlene identified billing codes. Officer Grant stated the intimidation-related preservation concern. Evelyn stated that any emergency funding she provided would pass through a neutral patient trust with no data rights, no publicity, and no Hartwell control. Dr. March resisted, reframed, softened, delayed, but each time Caleb brought her back to one question, clinical requirement or sponsor preference. By the end, she agreed in writing to freeze the expanded consent pending review, and Dr. Evans scheduled Lily's treatment without the Hartwell behavioral packet. When the call ended, Marlene put both hands over her face. I didn't know it was like that. Caleb stood. Now you do. Will I lose the grant? Maybe. She looked stricken. What do I tell the board? Caleb glanced through the conference room window at the waiting area where Lily was showing Ruth Calder and Mrs. Alvarez her drawing. Tell them a child came before a sponsor. Dr. Evans looked at Caleb. I'll put that in the medical note. Use better legal language. I will. Evelyn waited until they stepped into the hallway before speaking. You saved Lily's treatment. Caleb shook his head. Temporarily. You also exposed Hartwell's method. Part of it. What part? He looked toward Lily. The part that uses care as the gate. Mrs. Alvarez saw him and stood immediately. Lily ran to him, waving her drawing. Dad, look. Sergeant Pickles arrested the paperwork monster. The drawing showed a purple horse with a badge chasing a stack of papers with teeth. Caleb crouched and studied it seriously. Strong tactical composition. Lily beamed. Did you beat the real one? We made it smaller. Good. Small monsters fit in soup cans. Mrs. Alvarez nodded. Exactly. Evelyn stood several feet away, watching the exchange with an expression Caleb could not name. Loss, maybe, or recognition. Children measured adults differently than shareholders did. Lily looked at Evelyn again. Did you help? Evelyn swallowed. A little. Lily considered. You can help more later. Evelyn blinked, then nodded. I will. Good. Because Dad gets tired pretending he isn't tired. Caleb sighed. Lily. She patted his shoulder. It's okay. I'm telling the truth politely. Mrs. Alvarez muttered. This child is going to run a country or a barn. Officer Grant entered the waiting area, holding a tablet. Caleb, we received the first return on Hartwell pediatric resilience. His body turned before his face did. What did they find? Celia March is listed as director. Jonah Vale, the Red Willow consultant, was a founding advisor. Hartwell Pediatric Resilience shares data infrastructure with Hartwell Risk Advisory. Evelyn's face darkened. Of course it does. Officer Grant continued. There is a program category called Caregiver Compliance Mapping. Caleb looked at Lily. Mrs. Alvarez understood immediately and guided the child toward the fish tank. Not here, Caleb said. Officer Grant nodded. They moved into an empty exam room. Evelyn, Denise, Dr. Evans, and Marlene joined them. Officer Grant placed the tablet on the counter. Lily's file was flagged 3 months ago under a subcategory called Read Legacy Continuity. Caleb's hands went very still. Read it. Officer Grant hesitated. Caleb. Read it. She read. Subject minor. Lily Reed. Caregiver. Caleb Reed. Medical need creates ethical and operational sensitivity. Parent displays high autonomy resistance, high procedural literacy, low financial resilience, strong child protection trigger, recommended approach, sponsor support framed as pediatric opportunity, expanded consent requested only after dependence established, avoid overt pressure unless parent enters external crisis leadership role. Evelyn whispered, External crisis leadership. Caleb looked at her. Silvergate. Officer Grant kept reading, voice tight. If Reed becomes active in Hart, Silvergate asset conflict, pediatric support may function as stabilizing leverage. Do not threaten care directly. Introduce administrative uncertainty. Dr. Evans cursed under his breath. Marlene began crying. Caleb felt nothing for a moment, not because there was nothing inside him, but because the feeling was too large to enter the room all at once. Introduce administrative uncertainty. That was what they called a father hearing his daughter's treatment might be delayed. Not fear, not cruelty, not a child struggling to breathe. Administrative uncertainty. Evelyn gripped the exam counter. My family system did this. Caleb looked at her. Yes, she did not flinch from the word this time. I will dismantle it. Good, but not fast enough. No. Lily laughed faintly from the waiting room at something Mrs. Alvarez said to the fish, and every adult in the exam room felt the sound like a verdict. Officer Grant swiped to the next page, then stopped. There's a linked file. Caleb already knew it would be worse. Open it. She tapped. The screen asked for secondary authorization, then displayed a document header, Hannah Reed Medical Assistance History. Caleb stared at the name. The room blurred. then sharpened too much. Evelyn whispered, "Hannah?" Caleb nodded once, barely. "My wife." Dr. Evans stepped back as if the file itself were radioactive. Officer Grant looked at Caleb. "We can stop." "No." His voice was quiet enough that everyone had to lean toward it. "They put my wife in the same system as my daughter. We do not stop at the door." Officer Grant opened the file. The first entries were from Hannah's final year: treatment assistance inquiry, equine, therapy employment, hardship, caregiver, spouse crisis, negotiation background, dependent child respiratory monitoring, financial exhaustion index. Caleb remembered those months as hospital corridors, pill organizers, Hannah pretending not to be in pain, Lily learning to whisper during naps, and himself taking every barn shift he could. Hartwell remembered them as categories. Evelyn read the next line and covered her mouth. Caleb looked at her. "Say it." She shook her head. "Caleb, say it." Evelyn forced the words out. Assistance declined after risk review. Recommended, no direct grant. Preserve financial dependency for future compliance potential. The room went dead. Dr. Evans sat down hard on the rolling stool. Marlene whispered, "Oh my God." Caleb did not move. He could not. Not yet. Hannah had applied for help. He had not known. Or maybe he had known in fragments. A call she ended when he walked in, a brochure hidden under clinic papers, her saying, "Don't be angry, I just asked what was out there," and him saying he was not angry, only tired. Hartwell had declined help not because they lacked funds, not because she was ineligible, but because his desperation was more useful if preserved. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "My father's trust let your wife suffer because it made you more controllable." Caleb looked at her then, and the quiet in him became something far colder than rage. "No," she blinked. "No? Do not make that sentence smaller by putting it only on your father. Caleb, the trust did it. Hartwell did it. The medical network did it. The advisors did it. The people who wrote dependency as a strategy did it. Your father may have paid for the room, but other people furnished it." Evelyn took that like a blow because it was not spoken to hurt her. It was spoken to keep the target true. Officer Grant looked at the file. "There is an attachment." Caleb's throat tightened. "Open it." A scanned letter appeared. Hannah's handwriting. Caleb knew it before he read a word because grief recognized shape faster than language. "Dear Hartwell Assistance Review, my name is Hannah Reed. My husband Caleb does not know I am writing again. He has carried too much, and I am trying to make sure our daughter does not become another emergency he has to negotiate alone. Lily's breathing has been difficult since she was small. If there is any pediatric support, any respiratory program, any help that does not require Caleb to beg strangers after I am gone, please tell me where to sign. He believes every life has a door, if you can keep the room calm long enough. I am asking you not to close this one before he gets there." Caleb lowered his head. The room finally broke through him, not loudly, not with collapse, but with one hand gripping the edge of the counter and his shoulders bowing under a weight he had carried without knowing its full name. Mrs. Alvarez appeared in the doorway as if summoned by pain. She saw his face and said nothing. She simply stepped in and stood beside him, not touching until he leaned half an inch toward her. Then she put her hand on his back. "Breathe, mijo," she whispered. "Just breathe." Caleb did. Once, twice. The quiet voice Lily trusted returned slowly, not because he felt calm, but because Hannah's letter had asked him to find the door. He lifted his head. "That letter goes into evidence." Officer Grant nodded, eyes wet. "Yes, full copy to patient advocate." "Yes. Hartwell Pediatric Resilience records preserved tonight." "Already requesting warrant expansion." Evelyn's voice shook. "I will surrender every Heart Trust medical archive I can access." Caleb looked at her. "Not can. Will. If you cannot access them, you say who blocked you." "Yes." Lily appeared behind Mrs. Alvarez, sensing adult weather as children do. "Dad?" Caleb turned before anyone could hide the screen. He walked to the doorway and crouched. "Hey, Bug. Are you sad?" He did not lie. "Yes." "Because of Mom?" His throat tightened. "Yes." Lily held up Sergeant Pickles. "He says Mom would kick the paperwork monster." Mrs. Alvarez made a sound between a sob and a laugh. Caleb brushed Lily's curls from her face. She would. Can I help? Caleb looked into his daughter's eyes and understood the deepest cruelty of what Hartwell had done. They had tried to turn love into leverage, but love was also the one thing their models could never fully price. Yes, he said, you can keep being a kid while the grown-ups do the hard part. Lily considered that. Can I still draw evidence horses? Absolutely. Good. She hugged him, and for a few seconds the entire machinery of Hartwell, Silvergate, Red Willow, money, shame, grief, medical grants, bloodline theft, and all the rooms built to make fathers kneel had to wait outside the small circle of a child's arms. When Lily went back with Mrs. Alvarez, Caleb returned to the screen. Evelyn stood straighter now, tears gone, not because feeling had left her but because decision had entered. Where is Hartwell Pediatric Resilience headquartered? Caleb asked. Denise answered. A private medical foundation office outside Hartford, but servers mirror through the Hart Estate data center. Evelyn's face hardened. My father's estate. Caleb looked at her. There is always a house. Officer Grant said, we cannot search a private estate tonight without a warrant. Evelyn said, I can grant access to the estate. Caleb shook his head. Not enough. If you grant access privately, they claim family dispute and contamination. We need law, patient records, financial fraud, child intimidation, animal theft, and Red Willow connection tied into one preservation order. Officer Grant was already typing. I can push for emergency digital preservation tonight, physical warrant by morning. Denise's phone rang. She glanced down and froze. Miss Hart, it's the estate security chief. Evelyn answered on speaker without being asked. Yes? A male voice came through, strained and breathless. Miss Hart, sorry to call so late. We have a fire alarm at the West Archive building. Caleb's eyes closed. Of course. Evelyn went still. Fire? Smoke detected. Suppression system activated. But there are people on camera inside the archive wing. We thought it was maintenance at first, but the line crackled. Denise leaned closer. But what? The man swallowed audibly. They're removing server drives. Officer Grant stood. Caleb looked at Evelyn. Evelyn looked at Caleb. The next room had opened without waiting for them to knock. The security chief continued. One of them left something on the lobby camera. What? Evelyn asked. A child's drawing. Purple horse. Same one from the news post. Caleb felt Mrs. Alvarez stiffen behind him. Lily's latest drawing was still in the waiting room. This was not Lily's original. It was a copy. A message. Hartwell had moved from sticker to file to imitation, from threat to mockery, from medical pressure to archive destruction. Evelyn's voice became iron. Do not engage. Preserve camera feeds. Evacuate staff. Police are on the way. Caleb was already moving toward the door. Officer Grant followed. Evelyn grabbed her coat. Doctor, Evans called after them. Lily's treatment? Caleb stopped just long enough to turn. You treat her tomorrow under medical necessity. No sponsor delay. Put that in writing tonight. Dr. Evans nodded. I will. Caleb looked at Marlene. And you send every Hartwell contact to Officer Grant. She nodded through tears. Caleb stepped into the waiting area. Lily looked up from her drawing. He crouched in front of her. Bug, I have to go to another room. She studied him carefully. Is it scary? Yes. Is Atlas there? No. Is Mom's letter there? Caleb's throat tightened. Maybe the people who hid it. Lily handed him Sergeant Pickles. Take him in your head. He touched the stuffed horse's nose. I will. And Dad? Yeah? Don't let them make you small. Caleb kissed her forehead. Never. Then he stood, and when he walked out of the clinic with Evelyn, Officer Grant, and Denise, he was no longer the poor trainer rich people had mocked, no longer the failed negotiator Hartwell had studied, no longer the grieving widower they had preserved for compliance. He was the master negotiator single father they had built a system to control, and every system, no matter how rich, eventually made the same mistake. It forgot that the quietest man in the room might be the one listening to every door. Caleb Reed left Lily inside the clinic with Mrs. Alvarez, Ruth Calder, Officer Grant's backup unit, Dr. By Evans's written medical order, and Sergeant Pickles promoted to what Lily called Chief Anti-Paperwork Captain, but every step he took away from his daughter felt like walking against his own bones. The parking lot lights flickered on wet pavement. Evelyn Hart's SUV idled near the curb. Denise was already speaking to estate security through her earpiece, and Officer Grant stood beside Caleb's old pickup with the look of someone who had seen enough rooms go wrong to stop trusting doors. "You do not have to come," Evelyn said, though the sentence sounded as if she already knew he would refuse it. Caleb looked through the clinic window one last time. Lily was at the fish tank with Mrs. Alvarez, pointing at the orange fish she had apparently decided was corrupt. She was safe for the moment, which was the cruelest kind of safety because it asked a father to keep moving. "Yes," Caleb said, "I do." Evelyn's face tightened. "Because of the archive?" "Because whoever is inside your father's estate copied my daughter's drawing and left it on camera. That is not just evidence destruction. That is a message to keep me emotionally present in a room they control." Officer Grant nodded. "Then we define the room before we enter it." Caleb looked at her, approving despite the exhaustion behind his eyes. Hart Estate, West Archive, possible fire alarm, possible staged smoke event, active removal of server drives, child intimidation marker, Hartwell medical and risk records, unknown number of people inside, security staff on site, law enforcement en route. Evelyn has property access but must not contaminate search authority. I am a targeted party and should not touch evidence. Evelyn listened, and for the first time since Caleb had met her, she did not look like a woman trying to own the next decision. She looked like someone learning the cost of having owned too many before. "What am I?" she asked. "Witness," Caleb said. "Owner of the building, access holder, family representative, potential victim of fraud, potential source of records, not commander." Evelyn swallowed, but nodded. "And you?" Caleb glanced toward Lily again. "Parent of a targeted child, former crisis negotiator, material witness, not hero. Mrs. Alvarez would have liked that. Heroes got used. Witnesses survived long enough to make liars uncomfortable." They drove in convoy toward the Hart Estate, Officer Grant in front, Caleb in his old pickup, Evelyn and Denise behind him. Caleb refused to ride with Evelyn not because he distrusted her in that moment, though part of him still did, but because every vehicle told a story, and Hartwell had already proven it knew how to edit stories before facts could stand up. The road climbed away from the clinic and into the old wealth outside Hartford, where stone walls ran along private woods, where long driveways curved out of sight, where houses did not appear from the road because people with enough money preferred even their roofs to have privacy. Rain began again, thin and cold, tapping the windshield with the same rhythm that Red Willow had used in his memory. Caleb kept both hands on the wheel, letting each fact anchor him. Lily safe, Atlas safe, Hannah's letter preserved, Red Willow audio preserved, Hartwell pediatric file identified, estate archive active, unknown actors removing drives. Name the room, name the room, name the room. His phone buzzed once. A message from Mrs. Alvarez. Child still safe. Soup pending. Fish government unstable. Caleb breathed for the first time in 3 miles. Then another message arrived from an unknown number. You keep entering rooms built before you arrived. He did not answer. He screenshot it, forwarded it to Officer Grant, then placed the phone face down on the passenger seat because not every hook deserved a bite. The Hart Estate appeared behind black iron gates and stone pillars carved with a family crest Caleb had seen earlier in Evelyn's father's archive. The main house sat far up the hill like a courthouse pretending to be a home, all slate roof, tall windows, and yellow light. The West Archive building stood apart beyond a line of bare trees, a long modern structure of glass and stone, connected to the estate by a covered walkway. Red emergency lights pulsed silently inside, not bright enough to signal disaster, just enough to make every surface look guilty. Estate Security Chief Owen Pierce met them at the inner gate, a tall man in his 50s with rain on his coat and fear behind the professional mask. "Miss Hart," he said, "police are 5 minutes out. Suppression system triggered in West Archive server room, but heat sensors are inconsistent. Cameras show 3 people in the archive corridor, 2 carrying cases, One at the lobby camera. We have not engaged. Evelyn looked toward Caleb before answering. It was a small thing. It mattered. Caleb asked Owen. Are staff accounted for? Owen blinked, surprised that the man in the muddy barn jacket spoke first. Most. We are missing one night archivist, Patricia Lane, and one systems technician, Aaron Miles. Do the people on camera match them? One may be Miles, the other two are unknown. Fire visible, smoke only, could be suppressant vapor. Doors locked, server wing locked automatically when alarm triggered. Caleb's eyes sharpened. So, if people are inside removing drives, either they had override access before lockdown or someone gave them remote release. Owen looked at Evelyn. Evelyn's mouth tightened. Who holds remote release? Owen hesitated. Estate operations, Miss Hart. Hartwell Legacy Trustee Office. And Dr. Celia March had temporary emergency access during medical archive migration. Caleb looked at Officer Grant. There's our bridge. Evelyn's face went hard. Celia March is inside? Owen checked his tablet. Her badge pinged at the West Archive 19 minutes ago, then disappeared. Disappeared how? Caleb asked. Badge went offline. That is not disappearing. That is someone removing the badge or shielding it. Owen stared at him, then nodded. Officer Grant's backup cruisers rolled quietly up the drive behind them, lights off until they reached the archive perimeter. Caleb raised a hand before anyone moved toward the building. No one runs. One of the younger officers frowned. Officer Grant turned to him. Do as he says. Caleb looked at the archive building, the pulsing red lights, the glass lobby, the copied child's drawing taped neatly to the inside of the camera dome like a taunt. It was Lily's purple horse. Crudely reproduced from the clinic waiting room photo, Hartwell must have captured through some portal, some phone, some system that treated a child's drawing as pressure material. He felt the red edge of anger rise, and he named it before it named him. Anger present. Child referenced. Building active. Evidence at risk. Do not gallop. He turned to Evelyn. You stay behind the police line until Officer Grant authorizes entry. Evelyn opened her mouth, then closed it. Understood. Owen looked offended. This is Miss Hart's estate. Caleb looked at him. That is exactly why she does not become the first person on camera entering a possibly contaminated archive. Owen flushed. Evelyn said, He's right. Those two words still cost her something. Caleb noticed. Then a speaker near the archive entrance crackled. A woman's voice came through, smooth, controlled, familiar from the clinic phone call. Mr. Reed, if you are outside, please stop instructing my security staff as if grief qualifies you for command. Dr. Celia March. Evelyn stiffened. Officer Grant lifted her radio, but Caleb shook his head once and stepped only far enough that his voice would carry toward the exterior intercom without needing to shout. Dr. March, this is Caleb Reed. I am outside the West Archive with Officer Grant, Evelyn Hart, estate security, and responding officers. Are you safe? A soft laugh came through the speaker, still beginning with welfare. Charming. Are you safe? He repeated. There was a pause. Yes. Is anyone injured? Not yet. Owen's face went pale. Officer Grant's eyes sharpened. Caleb kept his voice unchanged. Who is with you? People who understand that information needs stewardship. That is a slogan. Try names. Another pause. Aaron Miles is here. Patricia Lane is here. Jonah Vale is here. Evelyn whispered. Vale. The Red Willow consultant. The man whose voice had turned optics into a death sentence. Caleb felt the bridge rain in his bones and made his feet stay still. Are Aaron and Patricia free to leave? Doctor? March's tone warmed falsely. Everyone here is making choices. That is not an answer. You always did prefer narrow language. Caleb glanced at Officer Grant. Hostage elements possible. Staff present. Evidence removal active. Fire alarm staged. Child pressure marker. Red Willow actor present. He lowered his voice slightly, not because he was weakening, but because intimate calm traveled better through fear than public authority. Celia, I'm going to ask again, and I want the answer to be useful for you later. Are Aaron Miles and Patricia Lane free to leave the archive? Silence. Then a man's voice, farther from the microphone, shouted, "No." Another sound followed, sharp and muffled, like someone being shoved against a wall. Evelyn started forward. Caleb's hand rose. "Stop." She froze, breathing hard. Dr. March's voice returned, cooler now. "Aaron is emotional," Caleb said. "Good. Emotional means alive." Officer Grant leaned toward him. "We need entry," Caleb murmured. "Not blind. She put us on the intercom because she wants the first move recorded." He lifted his voice again. "Celia, the building is surrounded. Police are present. The server drives are preserved assets in an active investigation. The people with you are witnesses before they are employees. You can still choose the version of this room where everyone walks out and the records speak." Celia laughed softly. "Records do not speak, Mr. Reed. People interpret them. That is what you never understood. Red Willow did not ruin you because of what happened. It ruined you because the wrong people framed what happened first." Caleb felt Evelyn looking at him, but he did not look back. "Then you understand why destroying records is an admission." "Destroying?" Celia sounded amused. "We are securing sensitive medical data from a compromised family member and an unstable former negotiator with documented child transfer fixation." Officer Grant muttered, "There it is." Caleb almost smiled without humor. "You are testing the label before you publish it. I am describing risk." "No, you are rehearsing a headline." The intercom hissed. Rain ticked on Caleb's jacket. Inside the building, red lights pulsed over the copied horse drawing. Then another voice entered, older, male, smooth as a knife through silk. Jonah Vale. "Hello, Caleb." The sound of him reached into the past with clean fingers. Caleb saw the bridge again, heard rain on metal, heard Toby crying, heard the order move before the boy was safe. His body wanted to step backward. His training moved him forward half a breath instead. "Jonah." Evelyn's eyes widened at the steadiness of his voice. Vale said, "You sound better than I expected. Red Willow should have broken you more permanently. It did. And yet here you are. Broken things still enter rooms." Vale chuckled. "That is why you were always valuable. Most men either collapse under guilt or harden into violence. You became useful, predictably protective, procedurally rigid, emotionally controllable through children, animals, and women who remind you of debts you cannot repay." Evelyn flinched at the precision of cruelty. Caleb did not. He had learned something in the clinic, in Red Willow, in Lily's file, in Hannah's letter. When someone read your wound aloud, the wound did not become theirs. "You studied me," Caleb said. "Yes." "Then you know I am recording." Vale laughed. "Of course." "And you know Officer Grant is present." "Yes." "And you know Evelyn Hart is listening." A pause. Small. Real. "Yes." Caleb looked at Evelyn without turning his head. "Then say what you want her to hear." Vale's silence lengthened, and Caleb knew he had shifted the room. People like Vale loved controlling audience, but they hated being asked to admit which audience they were performing for. Celia's voice snapped in first. "We want proper authority restored. Evelyn is compromised by guilt, family shock, and inappropriate dependence on you." Evelyn stepped forward, trembling with anger, but Caleb spoke before she could. "Evelyn, do not defend your stability. Defending the frame strengthens it." She stopped. Celia went quiet. Caleb continued. "Celia, if Evelyn is compromised, the remedy is court oversight, independent trusteeship, and record preservation, not secret drive removal during a staged alarm." Officer Grant nodded to a tactical officer, who began mapping side access quietly. Vale said, "You still believe the system corrects itself if named properly?" "No," Caleb said. "I believe systems hate being named in front of witnesses." That landed outside too. Owen Pierce looked at his shoes. Denise's jaw worked. Evelyn stood very still. Celia said, "You are wasting time." Caleb looked at the building's ventilation outlets. Smoke was thinning. No active fire. Alarm as cover. "Yes," he said. "That is the point." Officer Grant glanced at him. He gave the smallest nod toward the west side where the server room loading exit sat beyond a low stone wall. If they were buying time, Police could contain the physical exit while Caleb held the voice channel. He turned back to the intercom. "Aaron," he called, "if you can hear me, say one true thing about the room." Celia snapped, "Do not speak to him." Caleb kept his voice steady. "Aaron, one fact, not a confession, just a fact." A scuffle. Then the younger man's voice came through, shaky and far away. "Server room, West Archive. 3 cases packed. Patricia is crying." Caleb nodded. "Good. Are you injured?" "No." "Is Patricia injured?" "No." "Are the drives intact?" Silence. "Aaron," Caleb said gently, "you are not deciding loyalty. You are identifying whether evidence still exists." Aaron's voice cracked. "Yes, mostly. They pulled 6. 2 are in a case. 4 still mounted." Vale's voice cut in. "Aaron, stop." Caleb spoke over him, not louder, just more precisely. "Aaron, move Patricia away from the server racks if you can do it without touching Celia or Jonah. Do not fight. Do not grab evidence. People before objects." Celia hissed, "You are giving operational instructions to my staff." "No," Caleb said. "I am reducing harm to witnesses you are unlawfully pressuring." Vale laughed, but the laugh was thinner. "You always did need a child or a frightened subordinate to become brave." For the first time, Evelyn spoke, and her voice came cold through the rain. "Mr. Vale, you are speaking inside my father's archive, under my family's name, with my staff trapped and my records being removed. If you believe you are authorized, identify the instrument." Caleb almost looked at her. "Good, not outrage, not shame. Instrument. Facts." Vale replied, "Evelyn, your father understood continuity. You understand inheritance only as guilt, because Mr. Reed has infected the room." Evelyn's mouth tightened. "Name the instrument." Silence. Caleb saw Officer Grant's team reach the west loading exit. One officer signaled, "Chained from inside." That meant the people inside did not plan to leave through the obvious door, or wanted police to think so. "Owen," Caleb said quietly, "does the archive have a lower utility tunnel?" Owen's face changed. "Yes, to the main house mechanical room." Evelyn turned on him. "Why didn't you say that?" Owen stammered. "It's sealed." Caleb looked at him. "Sealed like condemned South Barn sealed." Owen went red. Denise was already moving, calling units to the main house. Caleb lifted his voice back to the intercom. "Jonah, the tunnel is covered." The speaker went silent. That silence told them more than denial would have. Officer Grant spoke into her radio. "Secure mechanical access now." Quietly. Celia's voice returned sharper. "Caleb, you are escalating." "No," he said, "you are losing exits. This archive contains protected medical data. Police entry risks exposure. Then release Aaron, Patricia, and the drives to Officer Grant. You and Jonah walk out with hands visible and counsel present. Protected data remains protected. Criminal behavior does not." Vale said, "Such confidence from a man whose wife died after begging systems like this for help." Evelyn flinched. Caleb's eyes lowered for half a second. Hannah's letter moved inside him like a hand on his back. He did not bite. "Thank you for confirming you know about Hannah's letter." Silence again. Officer Grant whispered, "Beautiful." Caleb did not react. "That knowledge narrows the source of your access." Vale's voice cooled. "You think this is a deposition?" "No, depositions happen later. This is where you decide how useful you want them to be." Celia said, "You cannot protect Lily forever." The air outside changed. Evelyn made a sound. Denise's hand went to her weapon. Officer Grant's expression hardened. Caleb's quiet became glacial. "State the threat clearly." Celia laughed softly. "You rely too much on that line. Because people like you rely too much on implication. I am saying children with complex medical needs require cooperative caregivers." Caleb nodded to himself. There it was. Officer Grant. Note sponsor. Based coercive language directed at a named minor during active investigation. Officer Grant answered loudly enough for the intercom to catch it. Noted. Celia went silent. Vale's voice returned, softer, almost intimate. "Caleb, walk away from Evelyn. Take your daughter's care. Let Hartwell handle the archive transition. We can restore medical support, clear your Red Willow reputation quietly, provide long-term stability for Lily. No cameras, no court, no more rooms. Evelyn stared at Caleb, horror dawning at how perfectly the offer had been built. It was not crude. It was not a threat. It was every tired parent's fantasy wrapped around a leash. Lily breathing easier. Red Willow cleared. Hannah's letter honored with money. No more fighting. No more cold parking lots. No more wealthy rooms demanding he bleed neatly into evidence. Caleb closed his eyes once. In his mind, he saw Lily offering him Sergeant Pickles and saying, "Don't let them make you small." He opened his eyes. "Jonah, that is the first honest offer you have made." Vale's voice warmed. "Then hear it." "I do." Caleb let the words sit. "You are offering to give back pieces of what your system stole if I agree to help you keep the system intact." Vale did not answer. Caleb continued, "That tells us the archive still matters more than I do. Good to know." Evelyn breathed out slowly. Officer Grant's team signaled from the main house side. Utility tunnel door locked. Heat signature inside. Someone moving. Caleb shifted his weight, thinking, if police breached too early, Aaron and Patricia could be harmed, drives destroyed, Celia could trigger data wipe. If they waited too long, Vale could escape through internal passage. The room needed a smaller door. Not force, choice. Caleb looked at Owen. "Can you speak to Patricia?" Owen blinked. "She reports to me. Does she trust you?" He hesitated. That was answer. Evelyn spoke. "Patricia trusted my father's archivist, Mr. Lyle. He retired last year. Can you call him? He's 80. Is he alive? Yes. Call him." Evelyn did. It took 2 minutes to wake Mr. Lyle, explain enough without contaminating everything, and put him on speaker near the intercom. His voice came thin but firm, the voice of an old man who had guarded papers longer than most men guarded marriages. "Patricia Lane," he said into the rain, "this is Harold Lyle. If you are in that archive, listen to me. No record is worth your blood. No instruction outranks preservation of human life. Step away from the stacks. Say your location." "Inside," a woman sobbed. "Mr. Lyle?" Caleb lowered his head. "Good." An attachment not owned by fear. "Patricia," Caleb called. "Can you move? They told me if I leave, medical records go public and children get hurt." "That is how they made you guard the cage," Caleb said. "Listen carefully. Protecting records does not mean obeying the people removing them. It means getting yourself out so you can testify where they were." Patricia cried harder. "I opened the inner cabinet. I thought Dr. March had authority. You made a choice with the information they gave you. Now you have more information. Make the next choice." A long silence. Then Aaron shouted, "Patricia, come here." Celia yelled, "Do not move." Vale said something low and sharp. A crash sounded over the intercom. Officer Grant raised her hand, ready to order entry. Caleb listened. Footsteps, one set running, another stumble, a woman screaming. Then the West Archive lobby door burst open, and Patricia Lane ran out coughing, clutching a keycard to her chest. She fell to her knees on the wet stone as officers rushed to shield her. "Aaron is still inside," she gasped. "They have him in the server room. Vale has the wipe token. Dr. March has the black case." Officer Grant moved fast. "Medical to Patricia. Breach team ready." Caleb crouched in front of Patricia, outside the evidence path. "Patricia, where is the wipe token held?" She blinked through tears. "Vale's necklace. It looks like a silver drive. Server wipe local or remote?" "Local confirmation plus remote timer. He said if police breach, he triggers it." "How long?" "I don't know." Evelyn knelt despite the rain soaking her expensive coat. "Patricia, what black case?" Patricia looked at her, ashamed. "Your father's human archive." Evelyn went very still. "Human archive?" Patricia nodded, trembling. "Profiles. Children, parents, horses, crisis, subjects, medical grants, Red Willow, Reed family, Atlas, Harrison, you." Evelyn's face emptied. "Me? Yes." Patricia covered her mouth. "They profiled you too." Caleb had expected it, but Evelyn had not. Her family had not only studied victims, employees, grieving parents, sick children, and traumatized animals. It had studied its own air. Every room was a stall if someone else owned the latch. Caleb stood. Celia wants the black case out. Vale wants the servers wiped. They may not have the same priority. Officer Grant looked at him. Can we split them? Maybe. He returned to the intercom. Celia, no answer. Celia, Patricia is out. That means your room is smaller. Aaron is still in. Jonah has wipe authority. You have the black case. If Jonah wipes the server, your case becomes the only proof. That makes you useful until he no longer needs you. How long does Jonah keep useful people after they become witnesses? Silence. Then Celia's voice, much less smooth. You don't know what you're talking about. Caleb looked at Evelyn. She answered. Evelyn understood. Dr. March, she said, stepping beside Caleb. My father is dead. Harrison is in custody. Victor is exposed. Jonah Vale is a consultant whose value depends on making everyone else disposable. If you walk out with the case intact, you become a cooperating witness. If you help him wipe the servers, you become the person holding the only remaining proof of your own crimes. Celia snapped, Your father built this. Evelyn's face tightened. Then help me bury it properly. Caleb glanced at her. Strong sentence. Risky. But true enough. Vale's voice returned, cold and close to the microphone. Touching family moment. Caleb, you have always been talented at persuading women to confuse confession with freedom. Caleb did not take it. Aaron, can you hear me? A muffled sound. Maybe yes. Aaron, if you can move one hand, make a sound. A thump. Good. Do not fight Jonah. Do not be brave with your body. Be useful with facts. Where are you? Another thump. Then Aaron's strained voice. Server floor, east rack. Jonah near you? Yes. Vale said. Enough. Caleb lowered his voice. Jonah, you wanted me here because Red Willow was your proof of concept. You wanted to show that even now, I could be moved by shame, children, dead wives, frightened witnesses, and a horse they all thought was dangerous. But you made an error. Vale laughed, but it was tight. Enlighten me. You studied crisis response as if it belonged to the person speaking. Caleb looked toward Officer Grant's team at the tunnel entrance. It doesn't. A good negotiation changes the room. After that, everyone inside becomes harder to control. Evelyn stood straighter. Officer Grant signaled her team. Patricia was escorted farther away. Denise moved toward the main house path. Jamie stood up to Victor. Mason cut the rope. Marlene put the call on speaker. Dr. Evans separated care from sponsor language. Ava kept the audio. Sarah placed Toby's horse into evidence. Evelyn stopped commanding and started preserving. Patricia ran out. That is your problem, Jonah. I am not the asset. The room is turning. For the first time, Vale lost the silk. You sanctimonious little stable hand. Caleb almost smiled. There it was. The contempt under the science. The hierarchy under the model. The man who studied pain still needed class to feel tall. Thank you, Caleb said. For what? For sounding like yourself. Officer Grant gave the signal. At the same time, Evelyn spoke into the intercom, voice sharp and clear. Dr. March, this is your last clean exit. Walk to the lobby with the black case raised in your left hand, right hand visible. Say you are preserving evidence under protest if you need pride. But walk. Silence. Then Celia appeared behind the glass lobby doors, pale, hair loose, black case in one hand, the other raised. 2 officers moved in, weapons low but ready. She stepped outside, shaking so hard the case rattled. He has Aaron, she said, and the wipe token. Caleb turned back to the intercom. Vale was breathing harder now. Jonah, Celia is out. Then she has chosen prison. Maybe. But she chose a door. You think Aaron matters to me? No. Caleb's voice softened. But I think being seen, not caring matters to you. Silence. The Red Willow audio is preserved. Hannah's letter is preserved. Lily's file is preserved. Atlas is alive. Celia has the black case. Patricia is out. The tunnel is covered. The lobby is covered. Your remaining choices are getting smaller, and the only person left for you to perform intelligence to is a scared technician tied to a server rack. Vale said nothing. Caleb continued, You can walk out as the man who preserved the last system map, or you can be dragged out as the man who tried to erase children's medical files after threatening one. Vale's voice dropped. I did not threaten your daughter. Caleb's eyes went cold. You used her. There is a difference. Yes, threats are honest enough to admit violence. Use is what cowards call it when they want distance from harm. A long silence followed. Rain fell harder. Evelyn watched Caleb like she was watching a locked door hold against fire. Officer Grant's team at the server wing prepared to breach on command. Then Aaron's voice came faintly through the intercom, shaking but clear. He took it off. Officer Grant leaned forward. Took what off? Aaron shouted. The necklace. He took it off to plug into the rack. Caleb turned to Officer Grant. Now, the breach happened fast and strangely quiet. 2 teams through 2 doors, one at the server wing, one from the utility corridor, shields forward, lights sharp, commands layered but controlled. Caleb did not move toward the building. He stayed where he belonged, outside the threshold, hands visible, targeted party, not rescuer. Evelyn stayed beside him, though every part of her seemed to strain toward the archive. Through the glass, Caleb saw movement. Officers. Aaron pulled away. Vale shoved to the floor, one hand pinned inches from the server port, the silver wipe token kicked across the tile. For 1 second, Jonah Vale's face turned toward the window and found Caleb. There was no charm now, no study, no framework, only hatred. Caleb looked back and gave him nothing to use. Minutes later, Aaron was carried out coughing but alive. Vale came next in cuffs, rain hitting his expensive suit, blood at his lip where the floor had met his arrogance. As he passed Caleb, he smiled through the blood. You still think this ends with me? Caleb said, No. Vale's smile faltered. Good. It ends with the people who paid you thinking you would stay quiet. Vale's eyes sharpened. Careful. Caleb stepped closer, just enough for Vale to hear him under the rain. State the threat clearly. Vale stared at him, then laughed once, but the laugh had fear in it now. Officers took him away. Celia March sat in the back of another cruiser, face gray, staring at the black case being photographed under a police canopy. Patricia gave her statement wrapped in a blanket. Aaron kept repeating that he thought Hartwell helped children. Evelyn stood in front of the West Archive doors, soaked through, looking at the building as if it had become a mausoleum for every lie her family had made respectable. Officer Grant opened the black case only after evidence markers, cameras, witnesses, and chain of custody language were in place. Inside were no dramatic gold bars, no weapons, no single secret document that solved everything. It was worse. Hard drives labeled by program, Red Willow Framework, Pediatric Resilience, Equine Asset Behavior, Executive Hair Conditioning, Grief, Based Compliance, Caregiver Leverage, Legacy Risk, Reed Family, Heart E. Evelyn saw the last label and inhaled sharply. Caleb did not look at her yet. Some discoveries deserved privacy before they became evidence, but the system had given none. Officer Grant photographed everything. Denise looked like she wanted to break something and had the discipline not to. Then Patricia, still trembling near the ambulance, called out, There's one more. Everyone turned. She pointed toward the archive lobby wall. Behind Mr. Hart's portrait, Mr. Lyle told me never to touch it unless the family line broke. Evelyn frowned. What? Owen Pierce looked shaken. There is no safe behind that portrait. Patricia wiped her face. Yes, there is. Evelyn looked at Caleb. He said, Photograph before moving. She nodded. They entered only after Officer Grant cleared it. Caleb stayed behind the evidence line, watching as officers removed the portrait of Evelyn's father from the lobby wall. Behind it was a steel panel with an old mechanical lock, not digital, not connected to the system Vale had tried to wipe. Owen had no key. Patricia did not know the combination. Evelyn stared at it, then whispered, My father used dates. Caleb's eyes shifted to her. Legacy dates or wound dates? She understood the question too well. Both. They tried Evelyn's birthday. Nothing. Harrison's birthday. Nothing. Her father's death date. Nothing. Daniel Hart's death date, the child her father had spoken of in old family stories. The lock clicked once but did not open. Evelyn went pale. "Half right," Caleb said. "Not death alone." "What else?" He looked at the labels in the black case. Grief-based compliance, air conditioning, legacy risk. A date he turned grief into structure. Evelyn's hands trembled. The foundation incorporation date. She entered it after Daniel's death date. The safe opened. Inside was one red leather ledger and a stack of handwritten letters bound in blue ribbon. Evelyn did not touch them. Officer Grant photographed, gloved, and lifted the top page. The handwriting was Evelyn's father's. She read aloud because Caleb asked her to, though by then none of them wanted more truth. Hartwell's central principle: people do not obey power. They obey the version of love, fear, guilt, or hope that power teaches them to protect. Evelyn stopped, eyes filling with horror. Caleb stared at the page. That was the sentence under every room. The horse destroyed for legacy. Lily's care used for compliance. Hannah's plea declined to preserve dependency. Sarah's grief purchased with privacy. Ava's silence bought through her son. Evelyn's pride trained as inheritance. Red Willow turned into a model. Midnight Atlas turned into bait. Caleb turned into an asset. Officer Grant lifted the next page. A list of names. Dozens, hundreds. Families, staff, children, animals, heirs, veterans, caregivers. At the top of one column, in neat ink, were the words, "Active rooms." Caleb's phone buzzed. Everyone froze. Unknown number again. He did not want to look, but the room had taught him that refusing to see a thing did not make it less true. He turned the screen over. The message was short. "You found the ledger. Now choose which room burns first. The clinic, the barn, or your home." A second message arrived with 3 live images. Lily asleep beside Mrs. Alvarez at Ruth Calder's kitchen table, Midnight Atlas, in Dr. Patel's independent barn, and Caleb's apartment above the feed store. Evelyn whispered, "Caleb." Caleb looked at the 3 images, then at the red ledger, then at the archive doors where Jonah Vale had just been taken away in cuffs. Vale was not the end. Celia was not the end. Harrison was not the end. The ledger had not only recorded rooms, it had activated them. Caleb's voice, when it came, was quiet enough that everyone leaned in to hear it. "Now we know what Hartwell really is," Officer Grant asked. "What?" Caleb looked at the 3 live images again, and every part of him became the calm before a door opened. Not a company, a network of rooms. Caleb Reed looked at the 3 live images glowing on his phone. Lily asleep at Ruth Calder's kitchen table with Mrs. Alvarez beside her. Midnight Atlas standing under soft lights at Dr. Patel's independent barn, and the dark window of his apartment above the feed store, and understood the final shape of Hartwell's cruelty. They were not asking him to choose between 3 places because they needed one destroyed. They were asking because they had spent years studying what love did under pressure. A father would run to the child. A trainer would run to the horse. A poor man would run to the only home he could barely afford. Then the other 2 rooms would become proof that he had failed. That was the shoot. Not walls, not ropes, not iron gates, but the belief that love could only move in one direction at a time. Evelyn Hart stood beside him in the West Archive lobby, soaked from the rain, her father's red ledger open under police lights, her face pale as she read the words "active rooms" again and again, as if repetition might make them less monstrous. Officer Grant had already moved closer. Denise was calling for additional units. Patricia Lane was wrapped in a blanket near the ambulance. Celia March sat in the back of a cruiser staring at the black evidence case like a woman watching her future lock itself, and Jonah Vale, handcuffed beside another patrol car, smiled through blood because he believed he had finally found the part of Caleb that procedure could not reach. "You should go." Vale called through the rain. "Which one will it be, Caleb? Daughter, horse, or home?" Caleb did not answer him. He looked instead at Officer Grant. "Name all 3 rooms." Officer Grant understood immediately. Ruth Calder residence, protected child, Mrs. Alvarez, retired deputy present, police unit outside, potential live surveillance, Dr. Patel's independent barn, protected equine witness, vet staff, police escort recently completed, possible surveillance. Read apartment above feed store. Unoccupied home, possible staged fire, evidence of prior intrusion, unknown threat. Caleb nodded. Now name the fourth room. Evelyn looked at him. Fourth? Caleb lifted the red ledger with gloved hands, only after Officer Grant nodded and another officer photographed the movement. Hartwell Archive. Original ledger. Full network map. Threat received in real time. Everyone here is a witness. Vale's smile thinned. Caleb turned toward him. You gave us a hostage choice because you still think I am alone in every room. Vale laughed softly. You are alone where it matters. Caleb looked at Evelyn, then at Officer Grant, then at Denise, then at Patricia, then back toward the red ledger. No, that is what the system taught me to believe. He turned to Officer Grant. We do not run to any one room. We create one larger room. Officer Grant's eyes sharpened. Coordinated response. Yes, separate teams, same record, same timestamp, same command language. No one improvises because they feel emotionally chosen by the threat. Evelyn stepped forward. What do you need from me? Caleb looked at her. This was the final test of who she had become in the last 2 days. You stop owning the rooms, she swallowed. And? You open them. Evelyn stared at the red ledger, at the labels in the black case, at her father's handwriting, at the files marked Reed Family and Hart E., and Caleb could see the old inheritance fighting inside her. Protect the name, manage exposure, call counsel, delay the wound until powerful people could decide what truth the public deserved. Then she looked toward Jonah Vale, toward Celia March, toward the estate her father had built, and something in her broke in the right direction. How public? She asked. Caleb said, public enough that burning one room cannot erase the map. Officer Grant looked at Evelyn. If you voluntarily surrender the ledger, the human archive, the Hartwell program list, and the active threat to state investigators tonight, we can move faster. But once you do it, you do not control where it leads. Evelyn's voice did not shake. Good, Vale shouted. Evelyn, you have no idea what you're releasing. Evelyn turned toward him, and the rain ran down her face like something cleaner than tears. That is exactly why I'm releasing it. Caleb nodded once. Denise, call Dr. Patel. Do not say panic. Say protocol. Ask her to move Atlas from visible stall to interior treatment bay. No lights at windows. Preserve all cameras. Staff away from doors. Police unit confirms perimeter. Denise moved. Officer Grant, call Ruth. Same structure. Do not wake Lily unless necessary. Move her away from windows. Not out the front door. Mrs. Alvarez names the room. Ruth handles firearm only if police instruct, not because fear asks. Feed store apartment. Officers check exterior. Fire department staging without sirens. No entry until camera and body cam are running. Officer Grant relayed each order with crisp precision. Caleb turned to Evelyn. Public statement now. Her eyes widened. Now? The message depends on private pressure. Break privacy. One camera, one statement, no polish. You say Hartwell is under criminal investigation, active threats are being made against a child, an animal witness, and a private home, and you are surrendering your father's archive to state custody. You do not defend yourself. You do not praise me. You do not say legacy. Evelyn nodded, then looked toward outside counsel, who was moving toward her with horror on his face. Miss Hart, I strongly advise. No, Evelyn said. The lawyer stopped. No more advice that begins with control exposure. Caleb almost smiled. Not because anything was funny, but because a room had changed again. Denise handed Evelyn a phone set to record. Officer Grant stood beside her, rain and police lights behind them, the West Archive doors open, the red ledger in evidence view but not readable. Evelyn faced the camera without makeup, without a prepared backdrop, without the cream coat that had once made her look untouchable. My name is Evelyn Hart, she said, and her voice was clear enough that even Vale went silent. Tonight, at my family estate, law enforcement interrupted the removal and attempted destruction of records connected to Hartwell Risk Advisory, Hartwell Pediatric Resilience, Silvergate Equestrian, the Red Willow Incident, and multiple programs that appear to have profiled and pressured children, families, medical patients, employees, and animal welfare witnesses. Active threats have been received against a minor child, an independent veterinary facility, and a private home. I am voluntarily surrendering the Hart archive, including my father's ledger and all related records, to independent legal custody. I will not control the investigation. I will not protect my family name from the truth. If my company, my foundation, my money, or my father's systems harmed people, then the record must speak before my reputation does. She stopped. Caleb quietly said, "Add one sentence." Evelyn looked at him. "Which? Help is not consent to silence." Evelyn turned back to the camera, and to every family who ever accepted help from Hartwell, Silvergate, or any Hart-connected program, help was not consent to silence. Denise uploaded it through Evelyn's verified company channel and sent copies to Officer Grant, state investigators, Dr. Evans, Dr. Patel, Red Willow County, Sarah Ellison, Ava Brooks, and 3 independent journalists Evelyn had never allowed inside her world before. At 1:14 a.m., the private rooms became one public room. Hartwell reacted within 6 minutes. First came a boilerplate denial from a legacy office account. Then came 3 anonymous posts trying to frame Caleb as unstable. Then came a forged medical rumor about Lily that was removed almost immediately because Dr. Evans, already awake and angrier than anyone expected, posted a physician's statement saying treatment decisions were being made solely on medical necessity and that coercive sponsor language had been reported to authorities. Then Dr. Patel posted that Midnight Atlas was alive, safe, and under independent care, and that any claim he had been destroyed, stolen by Caleb, or mishandled by staff was false. Then Sarah Ellison posted Toby's blue horse in an evidence bag and wrote only one sentence: "My son was not a case study." Ava Brooks released a short statement that dispatch audio from Red Willow had been preserved. Jamie, shaking so hard Denise had to help him, gave a recorded statement about the flash panels and Atlas's injury. Mason's preliminary confession followed through police channels. Marlene Pike turned over the full Hartwell sponsor packet. Patricia Lane identified the active room structure. Aaron Miles confirmed the server wipe attempt. One by one, the rooms Hartwell had built to keep people isolated began opening into each other. Caleb watched it happen from the archive lobby, not with triumph, but with a kind of exhausted disbelief. For years, he had thought negotiation meant standing close enough to fear to offer it a smaller next step. Tonight, it meant helping scattered people realize they had been locked in separate stalls by the same hand. His phone buzzed. Mrs. Alvarez. Room named. Child safe. Windows covered. Police grumpy but useful. Soup undefeated. Another buzz. Dr. Patel. Atlas moved. Safe. Ate hay. Gave me judgmental look. Good sign. Another buzz from the officer at the feed store. Apartment secure. No fire. Smoke device placed outside rear stair. Camera found facing window. Preserved. Caleb closed his eyes and let the breath leave his body slowly. All 3 rooms held, not because he had chosen correctly, but because he had refused to choose alone. Vale watched him from beside the cruiser, and for the first time Caleb saw the older man's confidence crack into something like confusion. "You think this saves them?" Vale called. "You think public outrage lasts? Systems wait, families settle, children grow up, horses die, men like you get tired." Caleb walked toward him slowly, stopping just outside the officer's space. "You're right about one thing." Vale smiled faintly. "I usually am. I am tired." Caleb's voice was so quiet the officers leaned in. "I am tired of being studied instead of heard. Tired of watching rich men call fear a model. Tired of people turning grief into procedure and calling it wisdom. Tired of dead children becoming training products, sick women becoming dependency scores, little girls becoming leverage, and frightened horses becoming assets with legs. I am very tired, Jonah." Vale's smile returned. "Then rest." Caleb shook his head. "No, I'm going to testify tired." The smile died. Officer Grant looked away to hide her own expression. Caleb stepped back. That is what your framework never understood. Exhaustion is not surrender when people stop being alone. By dawn, warrants had expanded across Hartwell Risk Advisory, Hartwell Pediatric Resilience, the Hart Estate Data Center, Silvergate vendor offices, Victor Langford's accounts, Dr. Bell's consulting records, Harrison Bellamy's shell companies, and the Red Willow Command Archive. Jonah Vale's attempted wipe became the bridge that connected old harm to current obstruction. Celia March began cooperating before breakfast after learning the Black case included her own compliance profile and that Hartwell had planned to blame her as rogue medical director if Lily's file became public. Harrison's attorneys tried to frame the horse theft as a family property misunderstanding, but Mason's statement, the sedation log, the sticker envelope, and the live threat messages made that collapse by noon. Victor insisted he had only followed performance protocols until recovered footage showed him staging Atlas's decline and signing sedation instructions before the death review. Dr. Bell's expert reports were revealed to have been drafted from Hartwell templates. The camera vendor admitted emergency deletion access. The facility's contractor gave up the South Barn code. The medical sponsor froze. The trust board scattered. And Evelyn Hart, who had once mistaken control for leadership, stood at the state attorney's office that afternoon and surrendered the executive air conditioning file marked Hart E without reading it first. Caleb noticed. When she came out, she found him sitting on a bench near the courthouse steps, head bowed, hands clasped, looking like a man who had spent 2 days holding doors open with his spine. I turned it over, she said. Good. I wanted to read it first. I know. I wanted to know how much of me was mine. Caleb looked at her then. More than the file says. Her face twisted, not quite crying. How do you know? Because you gave it up before it could defend you. She sat beside him, leaving space between them. For a while, neither spoke. Across the street, reporters waited behind barricades. Families from Red Willow had begun arriving. Silvergate staff stood in small clusters. Sarah Ellison was there, holding Ava Brooks's hand. Dr. Evans had sent Lily's treatment confirmation in writing. Dr. Patel had sent a photo of Atlas with his head buried in hay, which Lily later declared proof that horses understood legal victories required snacks. Evelyn looked at Caleb. What happens to Silvergate? That is your room. I want it to become independent. No Hartwell. No performance director with unchecked power. A welfare board with staff seats. Trauma rehabilitation first, competition second, if it survives. Caleb nodded. Good. And Atlas? He decides slowly. Can he compete again? Caleb looked at her. That is the wrong first question. Evelyn breathed out, almost smiling at herself. Right. What does he need? Time. Honest people. No one making his fear prove their theory. And you? He looked at the courthouse doors. Same answer. 3 weeks later, Midnight Atlas walked into the small outdoor paddock at Dr. Patel's facility with Lily Reed sitting safely on the fence beside Mrs. Alvarez, Sergeant Pickles in her lap, and Caleb standing 10 feet away with no lead rope in his hands. The stallion's coat had begun to shine again. The trembling had lessened. He still hated sudden lights, still watched doors, still disliked men who moved too fast near his left side, but he no longer looked as if the world was only a thing to survive. Lily held a carrot, though Caleb had told her 6 times that Atlas might not come close. He gets to say no, Caleb reminded her. I know, Lily said. Consent carrots. Mrs. Alvarez nodded solemnly. Very important. Atlas stood at the far end of the paddock, ears flicking, one dark eye on Caleb, one on Lily. Caleb turned his body slightly away, opening space. Lily copied him so perfectly that Caleb felt Hannah's memory like sunlight through an old window. Hi, Atlas, Lily said softly. I'm Lily. My lungs are dramatic, but I am nice. Mrs. Alvarez muttered. Child, please do not introduce yourself through medical summary. Lily ignored her. Dad says you were not bad. You were telling the truth loudly. I do that sometimes too. The stallion lowered his head. 1 step, then another. Caleb did not move. Lily held the carrot low, palm flat, not reaching. Atlas stopped 3 feet away, blew warm air over her sleeve, then took the carrot with the delicacy of a creature who had survived human stupidity and was trying not to judge all of them by it. Lily's face lit up. Caleb looked away because joy sometimes hurt worse than grief when it arrived after fear. Evelyn stood outside the fence in jeans and muddy boots that looked new but sincerely attempted, watching without entering. She had resigned as chair of the Hart Foundation 2 days earlier and placed the remaining assets into court-supervised restitution, medical care without silence clauses, Red Willow family compensation, independent equine welfare funding, scholarship restoration for Ava's son, and a legal defense fund for families whose help had been used to buy quiet. She had not asked anyone to forgive her. Nora, no, not Nora in this story. Sarah Ellison had told her that was wise. Forgiveness was not another room rich people could schedule. It would come or it would not. The first public hearing began a month later. Caleb testified in a plain dark jacket that Mrs. Alvarez ironed badly and proudly. He spoke about Red Willow without asking the room to absolve him. He spoke about Hannah's letter without turning his wife into a symbol. He spoke about Lily's file without exposing her private medical details. He spoke about Atlas as a witness to a system that punished fear after causing it. When Hartwell attorneys tried to frame him as emotionally unstable, Officer Grant played the West Archive recording of him keeping 3 threatened rooms safe without leaving evidence procedure. When they implied Evelyn had been manipulated by a grieving father, Evelyn read her own family's executive air conditioning summary and said, "I was manipulated long before Caleb Reed told me the truth." When they questioned Sarah's anger, Sarah placed Toby's blue horse on the witness table and said, "My anger is not a credibility problem. It is evidence that I loved my child before your clients made him data." Ava Brooks testified. Patricia Lane testified. Aaron Miles testified. Jamie testified with shaking hands but a clear voice. Mason testified. Dr. Evans testified. Dr. Patel testified. Celia March testified under cooperation and admitted Hartwell had used pediatric support as leverage across multiple families. Jonah Vale refused a plea until the Red Willow audio, the wipe token, the human archive, and the active room ledger made refusal look less like confidence than denial. Harrison Bellamy tried to blame Evelyn, Victor, and Vale, but the Bloodline Shell Company records told the story better than he did. Victor lost his license, contracts, and reputation. Dr. Bell's expert reports became exhibits in how prestige can dress up cruelty. Hartwell did not fall in one dramatic explosion. Systems rarely did. It cracked through filings, hearings, subpoenas, resignations, indictments, restitution orders, medical trust reforms, and the slow public exhaustion of people discovering how many soft words had been built to hide hard things. Caleb hated the slowness until Officer Grant told him, "Facts are horses too. You do not rush the ones you need to carry weight." He liked her more after that, though he only said, "Not bad." 6 months later, Silvergate reopened under a new name, Ingsring's Open Gate Equine Recovery Center. No bronze statues, no sponsor lounge, no death review board hidden behind glass. Staff had seats in welfare decisions. Every horse had a behavior history written in plain language, not blame. Every training session could be reviewed. Every child visiting the barn learned the first rule painted above the arena entrance: fear is communication, not guilt. Evelyn funded the transition but did not chair it. Caleb refused to become director twice, then accepted a different title Lily invented, room listener. The legal paperwork called him Director of Equine Crisis Rehabilitation and Human Safety Training, but everyone at the barn used Lily's title when he was not around. Jamie became his assistant and eventually stopped apologizing for being scared. Atlas never returned to elite competition. Instead, he became the horse veterans stood near when they were not ready to talk. The horse grieving children drew in purple crayon. The horse, wealthy donors, were not allowed to touch just because they had written checks. Sometimes he still refused the arena. Caleb let him. A refusal was a sentence. You did not punish a witness for speaking. One spring afternoon, Lily finished her treatment session at the clinic now funded by an independent patient trust with no sponsor data rights and came to the barn carrying a drawing. It showed a black horse, a little girl, a man in muddy boots, and a woman with a cream coat standing outside a gate, all under a huge sign that said, in crooked letters, "Nobody gets to make you small." It has readable text, Caleb said seriously. You always tell image prompts no readable text. Lily frowned. This is not a prompt. This is evidence. Mrs. Alvarez laughed so loudly, Atlas flicked an ear. Evelyn, standing nearby with 2 coffee cups, smiled in the careful way she had learned, never assuming she belonged inside every moment. Caleb accepted 1 cup. Thank you, she nodded. Hartwell Restitution Board approved the final Red Willow settlement today. Sarah asked that Toby's fund support crisis teams train to hold position when negotiators say hold. Caleb looked toward the paddock where Atlas grazed under late light. Good. She also asked if you would teach the first class. He closed his eyes. Red Willow did not vanish. It never would. But now it was not only a bridge where a boy died. It was also a room where the record opened, where a mother placed a blue horse into evidence, where shame lost its private lease on his life. I'll ask Lily, he said. Evelyn smiled, naturally. That evening, after the barn quieted, Caleb and Lily stood at Atlas's paddock fence. The sky was orange, the air soft with hay and rain coming later. Lily leaned against his side. Dad? Yeah, Bug. Are we safe now? Caleb looked at the horse, at the open gate, at the rebuilt barn, at Evelyn speaking with Sarah near the office, at Jamie laughing with Dr. Patel, at Mrs. Alvarez carrying soup into a place that definitely had not requested soup, but would receive it anyway. He wanted to say yes. Every parent wanted the mercy of that lie. Instead, he put an arm around his daughter and told her the truth gently. We are safer because more people know the room. Lily thought about that, so if monsters come back, we name them faster? Exactly. And Atlas helps? The stallion lifted his head as if hearing his name inside the evening. Caleb smiled. Atlas gets to choose. Lily nodded solemnly. Consent carrots. Caleb laughed then, fully, unexpectedly, and the sound startled him more than anyone else. Atlas walked to the fence, lowered his great black head, and rested his nose near Caleb's shoulder, not touching at first, then barely touching, a quiet weight from a creature who had once been condemned by people too proud to listen. Caleb placed his hand gently against the horse's neck. Not ownership, not victory, just contact freely given. Behind him, Evelyn stopped walking and watched without interrupting. She knew better now. Some rooms did not need command. Some rooms only needed enough quiet for trust to enter on its own. Caleb looked at Lily, at Atlas, at the barn that had once nearly become a killing floor and was now a place where frightened things were allowed to speak. For the first time in years, he did not feel like a man standing outside every door, begging systems not to close them. He felt like a father who had found the hinge, and when Lily slipped her small hand into his, he finally understood what Hannah had meant when she said horses could hear what people tried to hide. They could. But sometimes, if one quiet man listened long enough, so could an entire room. If this story moved you, tell me in the comments. Did Caleb make the right choice by refusing to choose only one room, and do you think Evelyn truly earned a second chance after helping expose her own family's system? If you believe fear is communication, not guilt, and that no child, parent, or animal should ever be used as leverage, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who needs to remember that being quiet does not mean being weak. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next emotional story.